Okay, so, do you know how sometimes something just exists and you never really think about it? Like Wi-Fi or roundabouts, or the fact that cereal's been sitting in your cupboard since 2023. Well, today we're talking about something that's been quietly keeping Britain running, and I mean that literally. While you've been standing on the platform complaining your 7:42 service to Birmingham is 3 minutes late again. We're talking about freight trains, specifically Heavy Haul Rail. Yes, that's a real company. No, not a band name, although honestly, missed opportunity. Right, so let's start from the top. Heavy Haul Rail is a British rail freight company. It launched officially and properly as an independent thing on the 29th of January 2026. That's basically brand new. Like, this company's newer than some of your New Year's resolutions that you've already given up on. But here's the thing, it's not actually that new. Before it was Heavy Haul Rail, it was part of a company called Freightliner, specifically the bit called Freightliner Heavy Haul. Now, Freightliner itself goes all the way back. We're talking 1969. That's older than your dad's music taste, and that was under something called the Transport Act of 1968, because back then, the government loved naming things after the year they made, which is also a solid system. So, for decades, Freightliner did two things. It moved containers, the big metal boxes you see on ships, and it moved bulk freight, the heavy stuff. Coal, stone, cement, the kind of things you would absolutely destroy your back if you tried to carry them yourself. And then, in September 2025, Freightliner agreed to sell its container business to a company called CMA CGM, a massive French shipping firm, and when that sale went through on the 29th of January 2026, the heavy haulage side of the business spun off and became its own standalone company. Ladies and gentlemen, Heavy Haul Rail was born. Headquarters Birmingham. Very professional, very Midlands. Okay, so what does Heavy Haul Rail actually do? The short answer is they move stuff. A lot of stuff. Long answer, they move 17 million tonnes of freight every single year. 17 million tonnes. To put that into perspective, the Eiffel Tower weighs about 10,000 tonnes. So Heavy Haul Rail moves the equivalent of 1,700 Eiffel Towers worth of stuff every year. Just casually, no big deal. Their customers are industries like energy, construction and manufacturing, so think of things like aggregates, that's gravel, sand, stone, coal and biomass and other bulk materials that you need to get from A to B and definitely can't fit in a Tesco bag. They've also got 95 locomotives and over 1,000 wagons. 95 locomotives. I can barely manage to find my keys in the morning, and these people are running a fleet of 95 locomotives. Respect. Their trains travel 3 million miles a year. 3 million! That's the equivalent of going around the Earth's equator 121 times. 121 times, people. Around the planet every single year. So, if you're having a bad day, just remember, somewhere out there there's a heavy haul locomotive on its 43rd lap of the globe this year, and it's not even complaining. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I know what you're thinking, it's just a train company that moves gravel, why should I care? And to that I say, fair, but also hold on, there's more. Heavy Haul Rail doesn't just move bulk materials, they also help maintain and renew rail infrastructure itself. So, the actual tracks, the rail network, Heavy Haul Rail is involved in keeping that going, which means they're basically holding part of the entire country's transportation system together. They also work with passenger train operators and rolling stock companies. That means the train you sit on, the ones where you argue with someone in the quiet carriage, Heavy Haul Rail's indirectly involving those and keeping them running too. They provide route conducting services, the whole lot. So yeah, they're just kind of everywhere, doing things quietly, while the rest of us are just existing. Okay, I saved the coolest bit for now. Heavy Haul Rail, or rather, as they still were, Freightliner Heavy Haul, ran the first hydrogen-powered train in the UK. Hydrogen trains. Do you understand what that means? Instead of diesel, you use hydrogen fuel cells, and the only byproduct is water. Water. A train basically going along, drinking its own exhaust, and that's incredible. That's the future. And that's the kind of thing that makes you feel like we might actually be okay as a species. And the company is owned by Brookfield and GIC. Brookfield being a massive Canadian asset of the company and a management company, and GIC being Singapore's sovereign wealth fund. So, Heavy Haul Rail is British, based in Birmingham, but backed by some serious global money, which is wild if you think about it. Every company has people at the top, and Heavy Haul Rail is no different. The chairman, Tim Shoveler, who's actually as chief executive of the whole Freightliner group before split, he knows the business inside out. And when the company changed, he stayed the chair. New one. The good sign. The CEO is Dave Penny. He's described the launch as, quote, a unique opportunity to build something new. And look, CEOs say stuff like that all the time, but in this case, it's actually kind of true, because they genuinely are rebuilding from a strong foundation with a new identity. Right, so why should you, a normal human person, care about a freight train company? Here's why. Rail freight. It's massively better for the environment than road freight. One freight train can take the equivalent of about 76 lorries off the road. 76 lorries. That's 76 fewer massive trucks clogging up the A1 while you're trying to get somewhere on a bank holiday. Every tonne of freight moved by rail produces significantly less CO2 than moving by road. To every time Heavy Haul Rail moves a load of aggregates or biomass, that's a direct environmental win. And with 17 million tonnes a year, the numbers add up fast. Heavy Haul Rail has said it wants to be, quote, the UK's most progressive bulk rail freight partner, focusing on reliability, bold thinking and a cleaner future for freight. Whether you're into trains or not, that's a pretty decent mission statement. So there you have it, Heavy Haul Rail, born the 29th of January 2026, from the split of Freightliner. Based in Birmingham, running 95 locomotives and over 1,000 wagons across 3 million miles a year. Moving 17 million tonnes of freight, maintaining the rail network, helping passenger services, running hydrogen trains, and being quietly enormously important while the rest of us don't even notice. They're like a friend who never makes a fuss, but somehow holds the entire friend group together. Except, instead of sending memes in the group chat, they're moving 1,700 Eiffel Towers worth of materials across the country every year. Anyway, if you found this interesting, which you should have because trains are cool and I made it funny, give it a like and subscribe and all that stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.